There is one Republican who seems very, very, very excited to make life worse for people in America who have the worst time. Let's take a look.
We can get at some of the mandatory spending also. I mean, food stamps, some of those things.
That is Republican Representative Tom Tiffany. And believe it or not, his take gets even worse than that. Using a secret camera, the undercurrent caught him red-handed saying this in July.
I just feel really just disheartened that, it's basically government bureaucrats that are running it. I mean, what we are learning every day is that, that's just not the way to do things. It should be, people who actual investors like from Wall Street who know what they're doing and went to school for that. So there's precedent though that actually works. Why isn't that something that we can do on a federal level?
Because you have a whole political party that does not believe in private enterprise. They do not believe private enterprise can solve problems. They are the enemy.
So trust private enterprise, the thing that fired your family and made healthcare wildly unaffordable in America. So that is the same guy. Let's go back to Tiffany's take on food stamps, though, because we're about to expose his hypocrisy. He's saying that we should be cutting spending on food stamps, what he calls mandatory spending. But Tiffany represents the state of Wisconsin, just to kind of frame this discussion the way that a progressive would. According to Subsidy Tracker, corporations are getting a lot of money in subsidies from in his state of Wisconsin. 2023, Fiserv Solutions, $7 million tax rebate. 2020, Molson Coors, $25 million. Green Bay Packaging, $60 million. Komatsu Mining Corp, basically $60 million. Haribo, I've seen that factory off the freeway. $22.5 million. And let's not forget Wisconsin asset Brett Favre and that $1.1 million welfare fund scandal from the COVID era. But not a peep from Tiffany on those handouts. Guys, what do you think seeing those moments where this guy wants to remove spending on food stamps to, quote, save money for America?
I'm not sure if they think far enough ahead for these agendas and these declarations that they'll make. I mean, I assume he wouldn't have said some of the things on camera knowingly, but maybe he would. So all this money comes in. You think he doesn't know that all this money comes into these particular industries, and private industry is the one that's solving all of our problems, and there's just one political party that doesn't believe in it. If does he not pay attention to how things work in the country, or how much money's been given, or is it just a constant push to keep that same narrative going? And they've convinced themselves of this as well. I looked up how much what's this Tom Tiffany or Tim Tiffany makes.
Tom Tiffany.
Is that his name? Double T. He's only worth like a few $100,000, right? So who is he looking to represent? He's a representative. Who does he represent? Like the people that he's saying should cut some more of their funding, or more of the things that actually do when they assist with a couple $100 a month to survive in the country. But he's probably the same guy that'll complain about crime or to complain about homelessness problems. But there's absolutely no solutions for those things outside of punishment for them. Punishment after you've continued to undercut people and keep them from anything of this American dream that we talk about. It's only for those private industries that we continue to give our damn money to. Maybe people who make minimum wage give their money to private industry because private industry always does something for other people. This stuff, as small as this guy is, I recognize a lot of names of members of Congress. He's one of the ones that I didn't before I had to look him up more. Even people like him who don't have that much personally, as far as getting tons of money put into their pockets over it, are still hell-bent and brainwashed on the same narrative that the government has made to give it to the richest people in the country, and corporations, in the country, and the little piddly couple $100 they try and take from poor folks. It doesn't do anything except for punish poor folks. That apparently is the agenda.
I don't know how much they have been brainwashed, or how much he's been brainwashed, as much as certainly they all sing from the same hymnal, and they do it with different degrees of elegance. Sometimes some of them are really good at it. I'd say he's not that great at it. And the reality is that these programs, particularly when you get to Social Security, which we'll talk more about, these programs are, I think, not going to go away just because these are popular programs. The thing about food stamps is that so many Americans aren't touched, and then so many Americans are touched. So I think the GOP feels safer in floating these kinds of entitlement programs to be on the chopping block, because not all of America necessarily has agency when it comes to these. But as to whether or not he believes this stuff, I don't know. It's kind of like trying to figure out at a Christmas mass who really believes in God and who's just there because they're bringing the kids into Christmas mass. I mean, I don't know, but it's definitely a consistent part of the GOP platform is taking a meeting on either revising or eliminating many of these programs.
Such a good analogy with the Christmas mass. Sorry, Brad, go ahead.
No, I agree. And with Trump, it's like, I wonder if Trump's like, quiet, we're just going to do that. Don't talk about it. Like, you guys, I don't know how the right wing has gotten away with saying, oh, are you poor? I'm going to make life worse for you in a country where there are more poor folk than rich folk. I know how they've done it, though, because in America, people want to be rich and they want to be safe. And if they're not rich or safe, they need someone to blame. And there's been a lot of race and economic shaming, essentially, by their saying, listen, the reason you're not rich is because we're giving $400 to people for food stamps. That's what they're saying. And it's your money that's buying other people food.
Exactly.
And I don't even think these guys want to get rid of food stamps, because the more money that goes toward food stamps, the more discretionary income people have to buy all the other crap that private enterprise is trying to sell them.
And they also don't have an excuse of who to blame. I mean, look, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and then obviously we've seen the uptick in mothers that have died, and also complications that don't get addressed. They don't have the boogeyman anymore. If something ever actually happens with gun control, other than like one provision every 10 years, they don't have the boogeyman anymore. They don't actually want to get rid of these things. Maybe they do, but once it happens, then like, oh man, what do we run on to complain about? So maybe they don't think that far ahead, and they just don't have to, because again, they have an electorate that's willing to buy whatever it is that they're selling.
Right, and Mark's right that like these things are so popular. People love entitlement programs, as they're called. They love Medicare. They love Social Security. And the one thing that the Republicans have in common with China, to be honest, is time. They're just going to spend a decade saying the same thing. The Chinese government thinks decades in advance. The Republicans, with their way they've been able to get control of the Supreme Court, they prove they're going to be decades in advance. So all they do is a messaging campaign forever to convince you that Medicare is bad, to convince you that Social Security is bad. Why? This guy says it. Privatize them. Give it off to the people who are doing private enterprise so that they can just vampirically suck all the money and make it so that they are rich. Even at a time when they're yelling at Medicare for being bad, it's like, well, it has lower administrative costs than United Healthcare does.